Hi guys, Daniel Stephen here, the Executive Health Coach, and in today's video I wanted to talk about my journey and where I've come from, where I've been, where I'm going, and hopefully that will give you a bit of an insight into who I am, let you get to know me a little bit more, and will help explain why it is I do what I do. So for me, my interest in health and fitness started off when I was really young. I've always been active, I always played in all the sports, I was always that kid with far too much energy, we all know one like that, and I was always active until my early teens when I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, which essentially is an autoimmune disease which they kind of can't really pinpoint as to the main cause. It's normally caused by a serious viral problem, but for me it was caused by a really bad bout of glandular fever. And that really changed my appreciation of being healthy. I went from always having energy, always being active, to being bedridden for days and weeks and almost months at a time. So that kind of sparked my interest in trying to figure out what I could do to improve my health, because there was no medication that would help, there was no Western medicine that could help at the time. So it really forced me to become more aware of what makes us healthy and fit, both physically and mentally. So that kind of started my interest and piqued my interest. So I went through school, played sports as best I could given the chronic fatigue syndrome. I came out of school, went to college, did my, what in the UK we call our A-levels, mainly still focused on playing sports though, hadn't really found my passion with education up until that point. And so when I finished my A-levels, I decided I'd go travelling. All my friends were going to university, they knew they wanted to be doctors, lawyers, accountants, working in banking, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I spent the next 3 years on and off travelling around the world, which is where I found my love of reading and writing. And that led to me deciding to do my degree in creative writing. And for those of you who are going, huh? There is a real degree in creative writing. So I did that in London. So when I finished my travels, I moved back to London and I started my degree. And I spent the next 3 years studying how to write in all its forms, which hopefully helps me with my content now on LinkedIn. But up until this point in my life, it's not really been that applicable to any jobs I've done because I've always worked in sales. I did my degree, really enjoyed it, finished my degree, and really the only careers at the time were try and be a novelist, which if anybody out there knows any novelists, unless your name is Dan Brown or J.K. Rowling, you make virtually no money. So finishing university, having debt, I decided I would go into a sales role, which is a form of work that I was very used to and comfortable with, and I went into finance. So I worked for a boutique small firm for a year out of graduation. I did very well, but I really found it hard to find a balance between what it needed me to do to be successful, which at the time was 80-hour work weeks, going into the office on Saturdays and Sundays, being available at all hours of the day to deal with calls from clients globally, and also the client entertainment side. So there would be 3 or 4 days during the week that I would be entertaining clients, both at lunch and at dinner. And then because I wasn't very happy, I would also continue the drinking into the weekend. So for me, that was the heaviest I've ever been and the most out of shape I've ever been. So my waist, which is normally around a 32 when I'm healthy and fit, ballooned to a 40. So I massively distended in the stomach area and put a lot of weight on. But on top of that, it was also the most unhappy I've ever been. I suffered with severe anxiety and depression throughout that year. It's something I've always struggled with. I struggled with depression throughout my school years. I struggled with it throughout my university years. The only time I didn't struggle with depression was whilst I was travelling, because I was just doing exactly what I wanted when I wanted with no stresses. But outside of that, it's always been something that's been a constant battle for me. So when I did this job in finance and sales, it really hit me. And it got to a point where I was at my wit's end and I didn't know what to do. I had a great paid job. I was, a year out of university making 6 figures with great prospects. I actually got offered a promotion, which is what prompted me to decide to quit that role and quit that career in that industry, because if I took that role and I took the big pay rise, I'd never be able to come down from that. My lifestyle would change to suit the financial income I had, So for me, it just suited me to decide to call it quits on that path, and it just wasn't for me. So I quit my career in finance, and I basically went full 180 the other direction, and I joined the Royal Marines. So whilst I was going through the training, I suffered quite a severe accident to my pelvis. I fractured my pelvis and tore a leg muscle on the endurance course, which essentially caused me to drop out due to medical reasons. It was a blessing in disguise though, the accident, as often is when we have hindsight being 2020. I look back on it now, and although the Royal Marines was an amazing experience and I learned an awful lot from it, it just wasn't right for me. I'm a massive pacifist, so to be honest, at the end of the day, joining the armed forces probably wasn't the best decision for me. But having gone from finance, where it was all about making money in the role I was in, to doing a role that paid very little, but it was all about service, I was like, neither is really where I want to be. But I loved the fitness side of the Royal Marines. So that really kind of helped me with that aspect of my life. So whilst I was in bed, unable to move for a couple of months due to the fractured pelvis and torn leg muscle, I sat there thinking, what do I want to do with my life? I've tried chasing money, it didn't make me happy, personally, and I've tried being in just pure service with no financial reward, and that also didn't work for me. So I realised, whilst unable to move, that I really missed being able to be active and healthy. So that led to me thinking about how can I incorporate health and fitness into a career. So the logical progression was personal training. So whilst I was in bed for a couple of months, unable to move, and then whilst recovering through the rehab process, I started to study to become a personal trainer. So I did all the theory stuff whilst in bed. I actually went up to London to take my practical part of the exams whilst on crutches. So I'm hobbling my way through to the exam, and they kind of look at me funny going, are you really here for the personal training exams if you can't move properly? But I was able to kind of get myself through that just about, and that was almost 10 years ago. And in the last 10 years, I've worked as your pretty standard personal trainer in a big gym. I worked for Virgin Active for a number of years. And when I did that, it was all about exercise. So my entry point into personal training was, if you exercise, that'll get you fit, that'll get you healthy, that'll help you lose weight, that'll make you feel great. And it does, to a degree. So I then started to realise, the more I worked with people, that something wasn't quite right. People weren't getting the results that I thought they should be. And that led me into the understanding of how important nutrition is. You can't out-train a bad diet, as the saying goes. So I'd already focused heavily on the exercise front. I'd taken multiple courses in lots of different training styles: kettlebells, Viper, TRX, power plates, spin instructing, you name it. I'd done the courses, gone on the advanced training, which was all very good and well, but that's when I really realised how important nutrition was. And that led me to start studying nutrition more heavily, getting my nutritional qualifications under my belt. And when I started to realise how important the food was, that's when the level of results really kicked up again for my clients. After another couple of years of focusing on nutrition and exercise, I started to realise that, hang on, people still aren't getting the results that I felt they should be, and consistently. And was it me? Was it my coaching? Obviously, when you're growing as a coach in a career, you will grow and you will get better. But I realised there was another aspect that I hadn't really thought about, and that was mindset, and how important that is. So for me, I worked at Virgin Active for 4 or 5 years. I was working as a PT originally, started to develop my skills into the more nutritional side of things, and then I left Virgin Active. I left being employed to become self-employed, and I pursued my own path then, working with clients freelance, focusing on nutrition, exercise and mindset. And that's what I've been doing for the last few years, but for the last 2 years I've purely been working online with my clients. So working remotely via things like WhatsApp, Zoom and Skype, I have email and LinkedIn to help coach people on all aspects of health and well-being.